Browns back at it here, getting ready for the Ravens on Thursday in Berea, and it was coordinator day, which means it was a day to talk about mistakes by some of these units. And we'll start with Bubba Ventrone, the special teams coordinator, who, of course, Mary Kay had those two back-to-back punt return, kickoff return touchdowns. Ultimately, at the end, you can point at those two and say that's why the Browns lost this game. And so Bubba, of course, answering for those today.
He really did, and he really put it right onto the players, saying we coached them up to get these things right, and they made some dumb mistakes. He was not happy about that. He attributed in part to the fact that there's a lot of new guys that are young on the units, but there are a lot of veterans that are playing special teams for the first time as well. And he talked about the fact that they've got to get it fixed by this weekend when they go against the Ravens. The Ravens, of course, have excellent special teams, but he did not mince words at all on special teams.
Yeah, and Ashley, we've talked so much about how little room for error this team has, and that really points to special teams, right? Missed kicks in week 1, running into the kicker in Pittsburgh, and then, of course, those two returns, huge mistakes in those two returns against the Jets on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it's been something that we've seen as an issue throughout the season. There have been other things, right? They let Corey Bojorquez get a blocked punt against the Baltimore Ravens in week 2, obviously their opponent this week, so they'll have to be on the lookout for that sort of stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's a tough matchup to try to bounce back from that because obviously Baltimore is such a sound special teams team usually. John Harbaugh, former special teams coordinator. But yeah, it's like the heat is not coming off of this unit right now, and I think rightfully so given how the season's gone.
Now, one of the other plays that, of course, has stood out was that 4th and 1 call when they put Dylan Gabriel in the shotgun, and Tommy Rees today went the opposite direction of Bubba Ventrone. He put it on himself. He said, I wish I could have that call back. We should have run the football. I found that interesting, Mary Kay, that Tommy didn't even hesitate in kind of owning that play.
No, he really did. He stepped right up. He owned that play, said when you talk about play calls that you want to have back, you can start right there. And he absolutely said we should have run the ball there, and he was kicking himself for that. So I think it's good for a first-time play caller to get out there, to own it, and to sort of just step right up and take accountability for something that happened in the game.
Yeah, and we talked to Joel Bitonio today, and he seemed to appreciate that, you have an offensive coordinator that's willing to kind of put that on himself. And Ashley, that's part of this, right? If you want accountability in the building, you have to be willing to take it on yourself sometimes too.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Tommy did such a good job at that. And look, I think when fans get frustrated with this team or the messaging from this team, it's Kevin Stefanski's typical answers of we have to get better. And I thought Tommy Rees handled everything really nicely today in terms of putting some of that onus on himself and, talking about a tangible thing that could have changed in that game to maybe change the outcome.
Now, on the other side, the last side of the ball that we haven't touched on, another side of the ball that had costly mistakes, Jim Schwartz spoke today. There was the hold on Devin Bush on the last drive, and then, of course, the now infamous Cam Thomas jumping off sides. Jim Schwartz called it embarrassing and actually said it was too bad because he thought Cam Thomas otherwise had a pretty good football game.
Yeah, he also called it a cardinal sin. We know that those guys are coached up on that sort of thing ad nauseum. We know that they were yelling at those players not to jump on that play. And, he just really didn't have an answer for why that happened with Cam Thomas. But as you mentioned, he did cite the fact that Cam Thomas had a sack in that game. He played really well. He had 2 quarterback hits. Unfortunate that it ended that way because, of course, Dylan Gabriel never got the chance to get the ball back and try to pull off that victory.
Yeah, and of course there was also that screen play as well that they gave up where they were trying to hold the Jets to a field goal. The Jets ended up catching them in really just a bad call. We talked to some guys after the game about that, Ashley. Really just those 3 plays, the defense played really well, but it was those 3 moments that ended up costing them.
It was, and Jim Schwartz talked about that screen play as well, talking about in order to try to keep them out of field goal range, they wanted to play it more aggressive, and I think that's life in the big city, as Jim Schwartz himself would say. With this defense, sometimes you see them make aggressive gambles like that. We've talked about it before. It's why it doesn't help when this defense has to play from behind because it makes it harder to do those sorts of things, and it makes it more detrimental when things leak through.
Okay, well, the Browns trying to clean up all of those mistakes as they host Baltimore on Sunday at Huntington Bank Field. We'll cover it all at cleveland.com/Browns.